I operate a very non-traditional model. And at the time, I did it out of necessity. And I'll just kind of cut to the chase in that I have no employees.
Hello and welcome to Beauty and the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. Now, today's special guest is Dr. Sinehan Bayrak. She's a facial plastic surgeon in private practice in Westchester, Pennsylvania for the past 2.2 years. Now, Dr. Bayrak received her medical degree from the University of Arkansas for Medical Science and completed a residency in otolaryngology as well as head and neck surgery at the University of Kansas Medical Center. She then did a fellowship in Tampa, Florida, and is now owner of a boutique concierge practice in Pennsylvania and regularly presents at the numerous medical conferences. Dr. Bayrak, welcome to Beauty and the Biz.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I'm so excited to be here. I've been a long-time listener, and it's a little crazy that I'm on it now. So I'm really excited to talk with you today.
I'm excited to talk with you because you're one of the up and comers. You haven't been at this for very long, so it's always interesting to hear how you're going to go about this
hmm
crazy world of business and marketing. So why facial plastic surgery? Why not some other specialty?
I think my trajectory there was a little unusual because I knew I wanted to be a doctor, and I almost immediately knew I wanted to be a surgeon. And I don't have a great reason for that. I think maybe part of it was just the prestige. Maybe part of it was knowing that it was kind of high intensity, high adrenaline. And in terms of why facial plastic surgery, the answer there is actually pretty simple in that I've always been attracted to beautiful things. So I find, especially the cosmetic component of what I do, to just be really interesting to me. And I like the intricacy and the detail of the face and neck that you really don't find elsewhere on the body. I think most people would agree that the face is pretty high value, high risk real estate. And I thought, why not focus exclusively on that?
So what was your journey to private practice? Because you moved around a bit throughout the United States. What was that like?
Definitely. So I was fortunate enough to train at the University of Kansas that I still reflect very fondly on, as much as you can think fondly of your surgical residency, in that it was a big academic program. And that's what I wanted. I wanted the resources of an environment like that, and that gave me a very good sense of what it would be like to be in academics when it came to not just otolaryngology but facial plastic surgery. And while there were parts of it that I liked, ultimately I decided to go the opposite route, the alternate route, which was private practice. And so after doing my fellowship at the University of South Florida in Tampa with Edward Ferrier, who is a wonderful human being, and a wonderful surgeon, of course, I was very much drawn to the cosmetic side of things. And I would argue, like most facial plastic surgeons would, that I think when it comes to the cosmetic procedures we do, as in the elective, aesthetic procedures, you really it's not just about the surgery that you're performing, it's about the environment that you're performing the surgery in, the environment that you are seeing your patients in, and ultimately, it comes down to how much you can control in private practice versus how much you can control in academics. And so I ended up taking an employed position with a, I would say, general plastic surgeon who, at that point in his career, exclusively did body work. And ultimately, it didn't work out. And I was faced with the decision of, okay, what do I do now? This was not really part of the plan. And so I decided to take the risk. And I thought, you know what? I think I can do this, just from looking at the people around me. And I figured I should at least try. And I guess thankfully it worked out.
So let's clarify. You were in Tampa, Florida, which is a lovely place, or it was until the hurricane. But so you
Mhm.
were there, you did a fellowship with somebody very well known in the facial plastic world. How beneficial was that, by the way?
Loved it. I could not have asked for a better fellowship. And if any, residents are listening to this who are interested in facial plastics fellowships, it was the best year of my life, I think. I just loved it. And so it was great in the sense that I spent time with Dr. Ferrier, who's had his private practice for 30 plus years. He's like the guy in that area, and I got to see how that operated. And it's such a well-oiled machine at this point that it wasn't just him that was a valuable source of information, but his practice manager, who's been with him for over 20 years, actually. And so there are certain things you can't learn in textbooks or from QMP videos or whatever other resources that you may have used in your formal training, that you have to kind of learn afterwards. And if you don't learn them, you're going to have a much harder go at things. You might have to learn a couple tough lessons, but I found it absolutely invaluable to do a fellowship that not only taught me how to do a facelift, how to do a rhinoplasty. These are things that obviously you have to know, but also how to treat your patients, how to structure your consultations, how to structure your own life, how to treat your employees, and kind of what it looks like to be a successful private practice.
Oh, I just think it's invaluable if you're thinking about going into private practice. It's such a good role modeling exercise. On the one hand, some of the surgeons say, but I got such good experience in academia because I got so much surgery experience. But then on the other hand, if you're going private someday, you don't just know how to open up a solo private practice. It's so helpful when you watch how somebody else did it that took 30 years to perfect it. You know,
Absolutely.
it's such a great
Absolutely.
shortcut. Yeah.
And I think, you and probably most of your listeners would agree that the business side is super important and overhead is super important. I mean, up until I think I did my fellowship, I never really thought about overhead because you're in a hospital and there's so much waste that actually happens in academics that you don't realize until you're in a private practice setting. And you know that, okay, I can do X, Y, and Z, but it's going to cost one, two, three. It's a slightly different way of thinking. And I think it's important if you want to be not just successful as a surgeon, but successful as a business person.
So true. So now you're in Florida and then you ended up in Pennsylvania. Did you know anybody in Pennsylvania?
I knew nobody, nobody in Pennsylvania. Actually, that's a lie. I knew one person. It was a friend from med school. We weren't super close, but we had kept in touch over the years. And he was a fellow at CHOP, which is a children's hospital in the area. Now he's an attending there. So I knew one person, but when I was young, I moved around a lot, actually. So moving to me was not daunting or scary. And most people move for their medical training quite a bit. And I just figured, you know what, this sounds like a good opportunity. I'm going to try it out. And if I don't like Pennsylvania, I can just leave. You can always leave. You can go someplace new. But ultimately, I left the employed position, but decided to stay. So it's a great area.
But it's a really big decision to make because to grow a practice, it takes years and you don't want to fiddle around too much. You want to get your roots going right away. So you're going to stay in Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
Now, how did you know what location to go with? Like how did you end up with Westchester? Was that the
Mhm.
place to be? Because I actually know that area. And I mentioned to
Mhm.
you, I was over there for consulting and I saw Whole Foods
Mhm.
that was brand new. And wherever Whole Foods is, that's where you want to be because they know what's going to happen in the Democrat.
Totally.
So did you
Totally.
take that into account or did you know that?
Definitely, definitely. And I'm almost positive it was something I probably heard on one of your episodes. It was like, let the businesses around you do the market research for you. So a little context to the story is part of the reason I decided to stay is I met my husband here. And he is from here. He works here. At the time, he was my boyfriend, so it it was kind of a risky decision, maybe. Now we're married, so ultimately a good decision. But part of it was he's here, his family is here, and then of course, like if I went someplace new, I'd start truly all over. Like no one in North Dakota knows who I am, but at least a couple people in the area know who I am here. Now, it's always uncomfortable to talk about, but I think it's important to talk about. I had a non-compete. And so I think non-competes in general are, it's always just, far enough to be annoying. And so I couldn't be in a lot of places that most surgeons would want to be. But Westchester was just far enough away. And so for the remainder of my non-compete, I actually had a very non-traditional, very small office because I did not want to be legally tied via a lease to a location for 3, 4, 5 years when I was geographically restricted. And so I found one place that would give me a 1-year lease. And you know what? It ended up being the best decision. Number one, I was able to draw from patients from all over. So not just the main line, but also other areas that are close to it that are, I don't want to say underserved, but kind of underserved when it comes to what I do. And then also I was just close enough to Delaware that actually I have a lot of patients that drive up from Delaware. So it's close to not a Whole Foods, but it was close to some other businesses that are kind of in the same category as Whole Foods. And Westchester ended up working out so well that I ended up, my current office I purchased last summer, I believe it was July of 23. And it's also in Westchester. And it's a little closer to that Whole Foods that you mentioned, but it's a great area. And actually, if you look at data, which I love numbers, Chester County has actually the highest median income in all of Pennsylvania. So to this day, I am just really kind of surprised that I'm the first facial plastic surgeon to be in this area.
And you got to buy there.
Mhm.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That
Oh,
was also another great move.
right. So, how's the surgical situation? Is there any way you can have an in-house surgical suite? Are you using a hospital? How are you working that out?
Yeah. So I think obviously it can be done. Pennsylvania is in very stark contrast to Florida when it comes to in-office surgical suites. They're a lot stricter. And so I am currently using a surgery center that I actually adore. The anesthesia team is fabulous. The nursing team is phenomenal. They are just so easy to work with. And so could I build something that would allow me to do surgeries on site? I could, but for the time being, it doesn't really make sense to put all the resources that would require into that, especially when I'm so happy with where I go. So I tried out a few surgery centers when I moved to the area. Obviously, the patient experience is very important to me, and ultimately, I feel like I found a total gem. So I operate at a third-party surgery center that's affiliated with the hospital. So we have the added, safety of that relationship.
Well, if it works for you and it's convenient enough for the patient, so many of the surgeons, set up these satellite offices and they want that patient to travel an hour, to surgery. And it's just a tougher decision to make at that point. So if you can work it out locally, I'd go for it, especially at your stage. I think it's a good move.
Yeah.
How about staff? How's that going?
So I don't know if we want to make the whole podcast about this. I operate a very non-traditional model. And at the time I did it out of necessity. And I'll just kind of cut to the chase in that I have no employees. When I first went out on my own, I'm very risk averse. I wasn't ready to commit to anybody. And I thought, you know what? I think I can, how busy could I possibly be? I think I can do this on my own. And honestly, highly recommend it. I think you should know. I think I know so many people who have no idea how certain aspects of their practice run. And I like knowing everything. And so I think even if it's not forever, it is good to at least some point in your career, do a pre-op visit yourself or, figure out what you want your emails to say so that you know what message is being sent to your patients. Now, it worked too well almost to the point where I was like, I came from an office where there were 8 employees, and it's shocking in the sense that it's not that much more work, if any at all. And I can't describe that, or I can't explain it. I think a lot of it has to do with efficiency. I'm very tech heavy, and I use a lot of automations and even an AI assistant that is integrated into my scheduling platform. And so I think in a way you're taking the humanness out of, or the human component out of things. But at the same time, we know that they can be unpredictable, they can be unreliable. And so for me, it's worked really well, actually. Now, I will say I'm at a point where things are getting a little too busy. Like, patients are starting to have trouble getting in, and I'm booking out a little further than I would like to be booking out. So now the question is, okay, who do I need to hire so that I'm able to be more efficient during my working hours? Because continuing to extend those hours is not the solution. So all that to say, I have no employees. I am, I guess, everything, for better or for worse.
Hello there. Quick pause to ask you if you have gaps in your practice draining your time, profits, and peace of mind. If so, I can help you streamline, grow, and take the guesswork out of your practice. Book your practice growth strategy review at catherinemaley.com, and let's turn those gaps into growth. Now, back to the podcast. You gave this killer talk at AAFPRS, and the title was One Doctor, One Room, 1 Million, or something like that. What was the title?
It was, I think it was One Room, One Woman, 1 Million, or something like that. I cringe a little bit because I don't like to brag.
Oh my God, that was the greatest talk and so succinct. And I thought, physically though, how the hell is she pulling that off? Because the phone is ringing and you're one office where there's no reception area. So what if you had a post-op, but then here comes a consult? Logistically, I could not wrap my mind around, how are you pulling this off? So could
Yeah.
you give the scenario of literally how much tech you're using, and who's not everyone's up for this, but as a patient, I love this idea. I got to tell you, I'm not your demographic, but I am all about efficiency, and I don't want to wait. I don't want to sit on the phone with you,
Yeah.
just talk about a general scenario of seeing post-ops, consults, and
Yeah.
how are you pulling that off?
Well, I think the number one thing that I eliminated, that I found, if I'm with a patient, I can't answer the phone. And I eliminated phone calls. My practice doesn't take phone calls. I find them in general, like even in my personal life, this is a hot take and I don't mean to offend anybody, but I find phone calls to most of the time be a waste of time. Like, I just think you can typically communicate what you need to communicate much faster in a text message, which is like literally how all communications take place in the practice. Now, because of that, I'm able to use the AI assistant that is integrated into my scheduling platform. So I don't take phone calls. The phone goes straight to a voicemail that says, the usual: if you're having an emergency, call 911. Please don't leave a voicemail. Voicemails are not monitored. Please text this number. And I think at first, I think at first people didn't really listen to the voicemail. And so then there's this automatic text that goes out to every missed call. But for the most part, believe it or not, I think people focus too much. And I feel like I have too many opinions for someone that's as young as I am, and has only been doing this for as long as I've been doing it. But I think there is this tendency to focus on getting as many patients as you possibly can, and not really stopping to think if you're getting the right patients. And for me, I I want I want patients like myself, as narcissistic as that sounds, people that are very comfortable with technology, people who do not want to sit on the phone, people that like online scheduling because it's 8 o'clock on a Saturday and they just realize that they're, going to be due for their neuromodulator or whatever, they need to see me and they want to schedule that. They don't want to wait till Monday morning to call into an office. And I think I've really just kept that focus very clear and streamlined, and it just self propagates really. You just keep attracting people that can work with the practice you have. Because ultimately, there are probably 5 practices within 10 miles that have the more traditional setup of, if you want someone you can call, if you want paper forms, there are plenty of people still doing that. So I may not be the right fit for everybody, but I think what's important is that I'm the right fit for enough people, in my opinion.
But what happens, like the typical day?
Yeah.
When you're seeing a consult, you're running late, and here comes your pre-op. How do you physically, logistically handle that?
So number one, my patients that know me know that not, I just said that I don't like to brag, but I will brag about this. I take punctuality very seriously, even in my personal life. And this is something my husband and I work on between the two of us. He's one of those people where, like, 10 minutes late's no big deal. To me, 10 minutes late is like kiss of death. I need to be 10 minutes early. So I will say I do a pretty darn good job of running on time. And I think when patients know that, let's say, Catherine, you have an appointment at 9:30, if your provider or physician is constantly not ready to see you until 15 minutes past your appointment date, what do you think happens? Because I think patients just start anticipating that and they start showing up late. My patients, I really believe this. They know that at 9:30, I am ready to see you. And if it's not 9:30, it's 9:31. So I think number one is I make a very big priority out of staying on time, and that's just something you have to self-regulate, and that's a learned skill. Like if a patient's going off on a tangent, they don't teach you in residency how to like bring things back to kind of what they're there for. I think I've gotten better at that as I've continued to practice, of course. So number one, you can't run late because you don't have anybody in your waiting area that's going to placate that patient or offer them a coffee or water. And number two is they they get instructions the day prior that says, when you come in, you can just have a seat in the waiting area and the doctor will be with you when she's ready, basically. So I guess I never really have a situation where I need to be seeing 2 people at one time. I don't double book my schedule. I don't stagger appointments. If someone's booked for 30 minutes, they get me for 30 minutes. If someone's booked for an hour, they get me for an hour.
Well, I do a lot of training for patient
Mhm,
coordinators because somebody in the practice has to be a closer. Somebody has to ask for the decision. In your practice, you're also that.
mhm,
How are you? So you do the consultation. I did
mhm,
notice online, you can schedule an appointment online for, let's say, a facelift consult is 45 minutes.
mhm,
So how much of that 45 minutes is, how well educated is that patient before they get there? And then
mhm,
how do you also have to do the quote then and there and
mhm.
ask for the decision in 45 minutes?
So for a 45-minute facelift consult, so first of all, I think most of my patients, so my primary referral platform is Instagram. So most of my patients who come in to see me have watched all my videos, they've looked at all my stories, they've been following me for a while. So a lot of the things that I would typically say in a consult, they'll say, "Oh yeah, I remember you saying that." So they're almost primed. And obviously everyone has their own opinion on social media. For me, it's been a blessing because of the fact that it's my primary referral source. I'm not getting like random people that just look up, plastic surgeon near me. I'm getting people that already kind of know who I am, how I talk, how I think about things. And so ultimately, they've, in a way, kind of already decided that they like me. So we can kind of just get straight to the point and we can talk about, obviously, I let them start the consult with what they don't like or what areas of concern that they've noticed. But ultimately, I do quotes at the end of the day. So I close the consult with saying, okay, I'm going to send you. Sometimes I send like two two different combinations of procedures, but I tell them what I'm going to send. I verify the email address on file, and I tell them that they're going to get a consult or a quote by the end of the day. Now, it's not ideal. I do think that sometimes it might be nice to have somebody that could spend a little more time kind of pinning them down. But at the same time, I don't really love the idea of forcing someone to make a decision regarding, okay, what day do you want to schedule when they've just met me and when they've just talked to me. One of the best pieces of advice that my fellowship mentor gave me, amongst many others, was basically he said that, your patients should be begging you to operate on them before you operate on them. I want my patients to be sure that they want me as their surgeon, because for me, that's not like a one-time thing. That is a long relationship that we are signing up for. So I do consults at the end of the day, or I'm sorry, I do estimates at the end of the day for all consults. And that's pretty much how it works.
I love what you're doing. All I'll say is, what's your conversion rate? It just, the results matter. So if
Mhm.
because there's pros and cons to everything. Personally, I think it's gotten so gosh darn competitive that you
Mhm.
can't take anything for granted. And too many surgeons are not doing enough at the beginning to get to a decision right then and there. So that would be aggressive. So
Mhm.
there's a lot more to all of this. There's a whole patient journey to this.
Mhm.
But I don't like to let anyone go away because there's a good chance they went on 3 other consults. I would say the caveat here is your social media is killer. I think this is so dependent on you and your social media that it works beautifully, but it's got some good variables. You're really good at this, your technology is really good, so it works for you. This is not for everybody. However,
Mhm.
if you can pull this off and not have employees or only have the minimal amount and not the usual crazy that goes on in an office with processes and consents and all of that. I mean, I find it fascinating. I would love to have you back in a couple years to see were you able to keep it up or did it
Mhm.
get out of hand, Like how
Yeah.
does it feel? How does it feel for you?
Well, at this point, I mean, I don't know what happened, in the sense that even one of the anesthesiologists at the surgery center was like, "What's going on?" Because I just kept asking for more OR time from them. I'm booked out like a few months with surgery, so at this point, I mean, this was never meant to be the plan forever. I will say it worked for a lot longer than I thought it was going to. Um, but I do think that, this is, in a few years when I'm back, I'm sure it'll be different in the sense that it'll be a more traditional model. I do think that there are pros to keeping things small. I find that, and I've worked at big hospitals, I've worked at bigger offices, I've worked at smaller offices, and there is a point where it almost seems like the interpersonal issues detract and distract from the patient care. And you just spend your time dealing with that. But I do think that the first position that I probably will hire soon for is someone like not a jack of all trades, but maybe a Jill of all trades, or a Jack, it doesn't matter. But someone who can do everything, someone that can help with social media, someone that can also function as a patient coordinator, um, and not necessarily just hire for those specific roles individually. But yeah, there are definite advantage to having someone kind of swoop in at the end, hype you up, and then get the patient to sign on the dotted line. Um, but but for now, my surgical schedule is pretty full, luckily.
Well, it's funny on your website, because I look at your website as a consumer would, and I see, okay, she texts. I didn't even realize that you didn't, there was no phone number, it just says text. So that made sense to me because I like texting. And then it said, schedule online, and then it had like four options. You can do a facelift consult for 45 minutes. You can do a, injectable, and it was like four options. I thought, okay, that's really interesting. And then when you click on it, it said, oh, there's nothing available for 30 days. Join my wait list. And I thought, is this a branding thing? Like, is she kidding? Like, is she? I thought,
No.
oh, she's learned the art of urgency or scarcity. And
Hmm.
so, but then I didn't know where to go. Like, I thought, I didn't want to join your website. I wanted to see when I could come in, and then if
Yeah.
I couldn't, like, that was it. And I thought, I you can tell that you're running the show the way you want, and you have to fit into your boundaries.
Mhm.
And frankly, working with the public, I am all for that. I say it all the time. You cannot dance for the public. You'll run yourself ragged trying to make everybody happy. So you're doing this on your terms, and so far it seems to be working very well. But I swear, I thought that was a marketing thing. I thought, oh,
No.
acting like she's so busy.
No, no. And it's so like, it's almost so cringy to say, like, oh, join my wait list. But actually, if you had kept clicking the arrows, like to
Uh-huh.
go to the other months, it would have shown you. I think my soonest appointment now is the end of April, which is crazy to think about.
Well, actually, your Instagram says booked out until April 2025. And I thought, oh, she's really pushing this. And because you're so young, I think, oh, how booked out can you possibly be?
Yeah.
But you are. Good.
Yeah.
Congratulations. You are quite the anomaly. Good for you.
Thank you. I'm not going to discount there is like the scarcity mindset where I do think that draws some people in. But for me, the purpose is mostly to communicate to patients, especially if they want surgery. Like, let's say you want surgery, I don't know, in May. Well, you need to like book that consult now. Like you should be on the wait list. And the wait list is maybe one of the best things that I have incorporated because the way it works is it's all automated. I do nothing with it. Patients sign up, they put in the days that work for them, the times that work for them. So let's say you've got kids, you drop them off, you pick them up from school, you can only come between the hours of 9 and 2. You can tailor all of that. You put yourself in on the wait list, and then what happens is anytime someone moves their appointment or cancels their appointment, if that appointment fits your criteria, you get an automatic text message. That automatic text message includes a link to book the appointment. And it basically has ensured that because it doesn't matter how big or how good you are, you're going to have cancellations, you're going to have reschedules, people are going to get sick, their kids are going to get sick. It ensures that basically you don't have any unfilled spots in your day, which is what I want. I want to be able to help the most number of people that I can help without compromising quality, of course. And so it always used to kind of be a little annoying when I just sit there for 30 or 45 minutes because it was so last minute or it didn't book. I used to post the openings on Instagram, but of course, if you're not looking at your Instagram regularly, you may not see this. So the wait list honestly has become almost a little bit of a game with patients because spots tend to go very quickly. And I think it was a couple of weeks ago, one of my patients sent me she got a wait list spot, and she sent me a message that said that she feels like she got into Harvard, which was very flattering, objectively hilarious. But
No, it's a
to
really
me,
good branding tactic.
yeah, and it's just efficient. I don't have to do anything. Like, let the machines do their thing.
So, are you pre-qualifying them at all?
For surgery. No. And that is definitely some place that I think could use some improvement. I will say that one thing that really helped was, and this was, I feel like private practice is just full of uncomfortable decisions. About a year ago, I made the decision after talking with a friend and colleague to put my pricing online. And the reason I did that was because I found that and maybe it was just that particular week, but I found that I had had a couple consults where people weren't necessarily financially prepared for the investment of facial plastic surgery. And I feel like that's the number one thing that can kind of help people decide, like, do I want this consult now or do I want this consult in 2 years once I've saved up a little bit of money? And that was a great move. I don't think that's happened since then. In fact, most people come in, I tell them I'm going to send them an estimate, and they're like, "Okay, I looked at your prices online. Like, I'm fully prepared for what it's going to be because it is expensive. It's a luxury. No one died from not having a facelift, and I say that all the time. So I think I guess there's like a financial vetting just from having the prices online. There is a virtual surgical pre-assessment that I have on the website that I love when patients fill out because it basically helps me tell them, listen, like, you need to stop smoking before I operate on you. Or if you're actively losing weight, which is a recurring theme, especially with the popularity of the injectable weight loss medicines, wait until you're within 10 pounds of your goal weight. Not everyone fills it out. I do find that, usually the demographic I attract, like anatomically and just from a health perspective, they're pretty good candidates. So it's very rare that I meet someone that I'm, I'm, I say, listen, I wouldn't operate on you.
It's so interesting though, because as a facial plastic surgeon, you're working with the aging face, but also the young rhino. So
Mhm.
it's two different worlds, and you're so young. Do you get? I mean, the aging face would look at you like, really? Can you? No, have you ever done this before?
I
Do you
don't
find that at all?
No, not really. I usually I mean, the whole point is to look young, Catherine. So I just tell them, I'm like, listen, I'm a lot older than I look. It's just basically a ton of Dysport in my face and good skincare. But I tell people how old I am all the time. I'm 35 years old. I've been doing this for X number of years. I think there are advantages to having a younger surgeon. I think there are advantages to having an older surgeon. There's no right or wrong answer. It's ultimately what you feel the most comfortable with. And I tell patients, this is not open heart surgery that's super nuanced and like maybe it's this one special technique that can only be done by Dr. So and so in Switzerland. There are plenty of people around me who do a solid facelift. I have no problem admitting that. I also think I do a solid facelift. Ultimately, as long as you're kind of going to someone that is surgically talented, which most people around me are, it it comes down to who do you feel the most comfortable with because it's not just the surgery, recovery and healing. I find it to be a very emotional time for people. And so that's always part of the service is you should feel comfortable with your surgeon. You should feel confident that they're not going to blow off your concerns. Um, you should feel you should know that they're going to spend time with you and address any concerns that you have. So I'm very upfront about, listen, like this is a deep plane facelift. I'm lucky enough to be in an area where there are, off the top of my head, 4 or 5 people around me that do a great one. It all depends on who you vibe the most with, almost. And I know I sound like a millennial when I say that because I am. But I think there's something to that. You should feel comfortable with your surgeon, especially, traditionally surgeons have kind of, the stereotype has been very cold, very quick, in and out. There's no room for, touchy-feely relationships here.
Well, that's why they bring staff on board. Somebody has got to be the touchy-feely emotional side of this. And that's my only concern. Do the
Mhm.
patients feel warm and fuzzy from the care they get when it is so tech savvy, or
Mhm.
tech
Mhm.
driven? But it seems to work just fine. So what do I know? But regarding social media, you have done a really good job. You already have 7,000 followers within a couple of years. How much time are you spending on social media and creating content?
It's my second job. It's my side gig. I have a love-hate relationship with it. I do. I love it because it allows me to meet such wonderful people, and it allows me to communicate to a really wide audience in a way that I would not be able to. I mean, there's no way. It would take me forever to have 7,000 appointments, you know? Um, I also, I mean, I love putting up beautiful before and afters, and who doesn't love compliments, you know? It is incredibly time consuming, and it's funny, it takes you 2 seconds to look at a post, but that post probably took, way longer than that to upload the pictures, organize the pictures, put them together in a nice layout, come up with a funny little tagline, come up with an engaging caption. It all takes time. So, unfortunately, it's I don't even want to call it a necessary evil. I think it's just necessary because it's such a big referral source for me. I do love that it gives people the opportunity to get to know me before they even come in. And maybe that's why I feel like my consult to surgery conversion ratio is actually pretty decent, because if they're coming in for a consult, in a way, I've already passed a few tests in their mind, I think. But ultimately it takes a lot of time, but I love what it does for me. I love what it does for my practice, and I think it's worth it.
Are you spending any money at all on website design or SEO or PPC ads?
Nope, nope.
It's all Instagram, so zero advertising budget?
Zero advertising. Actually, I can't say that anymore. This year I took out like a banner at the local high school, so I don't want to lie. I'm not I
Over rhinoplasty?
not just me and my practice. It was kind of ridiculous, but it was to support their athletic fund. So I think it's good to be engaged in your community. But ultimately, I don't do any of that. I mean, I think that, and granted, a lot of this is just hearsay, but I have plenty of colleagues that have hired social media agencies, and a lot of them feel like patients can, I mean, I can tell the second someone hires somebody to start doing their social media. The voice is different, the style is different. It's not bad, but it's just not as personal. And I think that's what people want. They want real and they want personal. And so I create all my own content, usually at night on the couch, with like Seinfeld on in the background. And I don't do the website I created by myself because, to me, again, I'm catering to people like me because I feel like I know what I want. So people like me, I think I probably know what they want too. To me, the website is just, you just need one, it needs to have resources on it. It needs to have information on it. But for the most part, I don't put a lot of stock into a website. I just think that, if as long as it has a link to schedule and pricing, and the maybe some forms that you want people to fill out. People in my practice that come to me, they go from Instagram to the website. They don't go from the website to Instagram. And then as far as SEO goes, I find that my SEO, maybe I guess organically, has been brought on by the Google reviews. So after every appointment, patients are texted a link, to leave a Google review. And so I think that has allowed me to amass the number of Google reviews that I have. And my understanding is that's one of the best ways to get organic SEO, is to have people leave you Google reviews.
Photos and reviews, and you have 200 in 2 years. That's amazing.
And that's only on one account. So I have one for myself. I have one for Bayrak Plastic Surgery. So I try to give both the attention they deserve. But I mean, that's what people read. I mean, I can't remember the last time I went to a, not that plastic surgeons are like restaurants, but I can't remember the last time I went to a restaurant and didn't look at the Google reviews.
So what about photo consents? Number 1, you need the consents, but then number 2, you need time to take the photos. So and is do you have a process for that as well? And is that all automated?
So photo consents, I think I mean, I feel like I'm working for Instagram right now, but I think another benefit of Instagram or people finding you through Instagram is they find you and they decide that they like what you do based upon other people's photos. So I find that, most of my patients consent to having their images used before they even meet me, actually, because the link to fill out the new patient paperwork is sent out before their appointment. Sometimes people change their minds. So they say no at first, and then we do a beautiful surgery and I put their before and afters together and it's like, oh gosh, like that looks really good. And sometimes I just crop things in real tight and they're okay with that. So I think if social media is a big part of your practice to begin with, you're going to attract more people that are okay being on there, especially if you're like, I make people look good. I don't use photos where their mouth is half open or they're in a half blink or something like that. In terms of taking the photos, I take those photos myself. That was a little tidbit I learned along the way. I know there are certainly offices where staff take those photos. Obviously, I don't have that luxury. I tried that briefly before, and I think part of the issue is when you're just starting out, I'm figuring out how I want my photos to be taken. So it's hard for me to train someone else to take them for me because I don't even have a system yet. And even, I've been taking patient photos for 3+ years now. And about a week ago, I decided to change the color, the temperature of my lights because I like how this different temperature looks. So I think for me, it doesn't take that much time. I actually model taking the photos for patients beforehand. So once they sit on that stool, they know exactly what to do.
And are you answering the DMs at night? Are you interacting with the audience?
I do. I do. I find that, everyone gets those random DMs from people that like are trying to sell you followers, basically. I filter those out, but a lot of my patients interact with me beyond their appointments, which I like. I mean, it's very boring to do what I do without having the relationships behind it. And that was something that I noticed when I transitioned into my own private practice because where I was before, a lot of my appointments were 15 minutes long. You can only get to know somebody so well in 15 minutes. And I made those 15-minute appointments 30-minute appointments because I had the time. And I found that I just got to know people so much better. I actually knew their last names now, and I know if they're married or if they're single or if they're dating. I know if they have kids or not. I know what they do for work. And so I enjoy that. I think that's what makes my job interesting. Otherwise, it's just, injections and surgical consults and post-ops. I mean, it gets kind of boring in the sense that it's just like, a machine. So I enjoy that aspect of things.
I'm back to logistics. So how do you keep all that straight? Are you literally, you have a tape recorder and you're right and you're like, or like you're using your iPhone and saying, okay, she's married, she's got 3 kids, she's going on vacation. How are you documenting all of this?
No, so you said something earlier, and I don't know exactly what your wording was, but you made the point that, what I do is not for everyone,
Mhm.
not just like patient wise, but physician wise. Like I do think it takes a certain personality to do things this way. I think you have to be very organized. I think you have to be very detail oriented. I think you need to be able to think about 8 things at once. For me, what helps me is I have a very, very good memory, almost too good. I think my husband would say it's too good. I have a tendency to just remember things. And I think when you're spending time with people, you can associate those details about their lives with them and their name. And so it's not a great answer. I wish there was a trick for that, but I'll take notes every like now and then. Like if I know they're going on vacation, I'll write down like where they're going on vacation. And that way, not only do I know that when I see them next, they'll probably have had sun exposure recently, but I can ask about their vacation. And that was actually something I learned from one of my attendings in residency. And his patients loved him. But a lot of it I do remember, and sometimes every now and then I get things mixed up. And usually it's funny actually, but sometimes I almost remember too well, and I'll be like, how was that? I know you were fighting with your sister-in-law last time I saw you. Like, what happened with that? So, and they're shocked that I remember, but I do think it makes people feel special. It makes them feel like you have an interest in them as a person and not just a transaction, which is, I mean, ultimately what I would want as a consumer.
Oh my gosh. All right. So tell me a crazy patient or staff story that you care to share.
I don't, man, there's so many, but I don't know that I want any of them recorded. I have a funny, I'll tell you something funny that I love when it happens. So at the end of every visit, I I walk I walk patients out. I walk them out to the through the waiting area to the door. And that's something actually I don't know if you know him, Ira Papel
Oh,
does.
yeah.
My friend had surgery with him and she mentioned it to me and she was like, I just loved it so much. I don't know why. I think it's a great touch. So anyway, I do that. And I cannot tell you the number of times the person I'm walking out and the person in the waiting area know each other. And
Oh
there's
my.
just like this big reunion that happens. And I love it. Sometimes it's like moms, their kids go to the same school. Sometimes it's like family friends that haven't seen each other in a while. It's bizarre. It's such a small world, but it just goes to show that people tend to we all are attracted to people like ourselves, and that's why I love word of mouth referrals. Is they just give you more of what you like typically. So I always think that's funny when it happens and it's like, oh, you come here, and she's like, I've been coming here for years. So
Last question. Tell us something we don't know about you.
oh, let's see, something you don't know about me.
I would love to talk about the wedding if you don't want to.
Yeah, we'll talk about the wedding. So to recap, moved to Pennsylvania. I didn't know anybody. I was 32. I was single. And I was like, okay, well, I don't really want to be single. So I have no shame. I got on Hinge, which Catherine, I don't know if you know, it's like a dating app. And I found this really cute guy on there who was a lawyer. And we went on our first date and decided we really liked each other. And then fast forward a year and a half later, we got married. And actually, I can't say that because it's a HIPAA violation, but we had a beautiful wedding that was just like the best time ever, the best day ever. And actually, I posted videos of it to my Instagram just because I felt like so many of my patients knew me when I was single and on this stupid dating app going on these ridiculous dates. They knew me when I was dating him. They knew me when I got engaged. A lot of people felt like they were along for the ride. And I liked sharing that with people. So it was great. I mean, I'm biased, but I thought it was beautiful.
It was a beautiful wedding. And I love your outfit change. Weddings have changed a lot, but you used to have to wear this ridiculously gorgeous dress throughout the whole day. And you went and changed into a much cuter short dress with sneakers. And I thought, how cute is that for the reception? But that was
Yeah.
lovely.
Highly recommend to any potential bride. It's like I loved my wedding dress, but being comfortable is I mean just unparalleled. Fun fact about the short beaded dress,
Yeah.
my mom hand sewed every bead on that dress.
Good.
So that dress was actually a long dress that I found. And my mom is very talented at sewing and things like that. She cut it, she made it short, and she hand beaded every single thing on there. It took her about 6 months. And I call her pretty much every night. And so every night when I'd call her, I'd be like, what are you doing? And she'd be like, oh, nothing. I'm just in my sweatshop. So, but it's beautiful. So I have to keep it forever. There's no way I could ever sell it.
That is now I have to go back and check that out because that's amazing. By the way, you really need audience. You need to go check out. It's not her website that's so interesting. It's her Instagram and how she's branding herself. And I just love all this tech. So great. Her website is bayrakmd.com, and that's spelled BAYRAKMD.com. And what's your Instagram?
My Instagram is at dr.bayrak, Bayrak. So dr, like the shortened form of doctor, .bayrak.
All right, that's fantastic. It has been a pleasure talking with you. I'm definitely going to have you back because I guarantee you've got to get some help. You're going to burn out here eventually. But for now, kudos to you. What a great job. What an unusual process you have. And it's not for everybody, but boy, it just blew my mind when I heard the talk and I thought, now she's thinking differently. How do you do this with the automation and especially with AI on board? There's no reason you can't look at all these processes and say, come on, do I really need 30 people here? Because if you do, it's a different kind of practice and it takes a different kind of skill set. So, all right. Well, everybody, that's going to wrap it up for us today. Please subscribe and give me a good review at Beauty in the Biz if you feel so inclined. And then if you've got any questions for me or want to schedule a strategy call, please go to CatherineMaley.com, or you can certainly DM me on my Instagram at CatherineMaleyMBA. Thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon.
The fastest way to success is to model other successful surgeons who have what you want, but you can only see their results, not the path they took to get there. So you continue to jump from one thing to another, hoping to find something that will work for you too. But it rarely does. So try this shortcut instead. It's guaranteed to move you forward. I compiled my intellectual property to grow cosmetic revenues, everything I've gleaned over the years, into one playbook of the most successful practices and what they do to win. Go to cosmeticpracticevault.com and let's grow your cosmetic revenues.